Deep within the caves of southern France, human hands once pressed against stone walls, leaving ghostly outlines that would endure for 36,000 years. These weren't the crude markings of brutish cavemen, but sophisticated artistic expressions created by people whose daily lives were far more complex and ingenious than we ever imagined. Recent archaeological discoveries have shattered our stereotypes about Paleolithic existence, revealing communities of skilled technologists, environmental engineers, and artists whose innovations laid the foundation for all human civilization. The Paleolithic era, spanning from 2.6 million to 12,000 years ago, encompassed the vast majority of human technological and social development. Far from being a harsh struggle for survival, this period saw remarkable achievements in sustainable living, advanced manufacturing, and cultural expression that modern society is only beginning to appreciate. From the sophisticated wooden spears of Schoningen to the haunting music of ivory flutes, Paleolithic peoples developed technologies and practices that sustained their communities for millennia while maintaining ecological balance. The mastery of fire around 400,000 years ago represented perhaps humanity's first great technological revolution. At sites like Cavemen Cave in Israel, archaeologists have uncovered structured hearths with stone windbreaks, ventilation systems, and carefully arranged fuel deposits. Evidence of sophisticated fire management that enabled northern expansion and complex food processing. These weren't accidental blazes maintained through luck, but engineered systems requiring deep understanding of combustion, fuel properties, and heat control. Paleolithic firekeepers developed elaborate preservation techniques that kept flames alive for weeks or months. They banked coals with ash arrangements, created slow-burning tinder bundles from fungal materials, and established community rotation systems for continuous fire maintenance. This technology consumed 800 to 1,200 calories daily in energy expenditure, a massive investment that paid dividends in cooked food, protection, light for evening activities, and the social bonding that occurred around communal hearths. Fire enabled the processing of previously indigestible plant foods and transformed meat into easily digestible protein. More importantly, it extended the usable day beyond sunset hours, creating time for tool maintenance, social activities, and cultural transmission. The evidence from sites like Taboon Cave shows recrystallized wood ash deposits spanning thousands of years, testament to generations of families maintaining the same hearth locations across centuries. These fire-centered activities created the first predictable gathering points that strengthened social bonds and facilitated the exchange of knowledge across generations. This mastery of fire fundamentally shaped the rhythm of daily life. Paleolithic existence moved to the eternal rhythm of solar cycles, with activities structured around daylight availability. Dawn brought natural awakening around 5:30 to 6:30 a.m., followed immediately by fire rekindling and morning meal preparation. The morning hours from 6:30 to 11 a.m. were devoted to primary foraging and hunting activities during optimal light conditions. Midday brought rest periods in shade, dedicated to tool maintenance and food processing during the day's heat. Afternoons saw secondary foraging activities and return to camp, while evenings were devoted to communal meals, social activities, and storytelling around fires that flickered against cave walls, creating the dancing shadows that may have inspired the first artistic expressions. Water collection occurred during cooler morning temperatures to minimize energy expenditure. Groups maintained camps within 2 to 5 kilometers of reliable water sources using organic containers crafted from gourds, animal stomachs, and bark vessels. The strategic placement of camps and sophisticated knowledge of seasonal water sources demonstrates environmental expertise that modern wilderness survival experts would envy. This deep environmental knowledge extended to food acquisition, where recent discoveries have revolutionized our understanding of Paleolithic subsistence. Dental calculus studies, microscopic analysis of mineralized dental plaque, provide direct evidence of plant consumption from 400,000-year-old sites like Cavemen Cave, where starch granules, plant fibers, and fatty acids preserved in ancient teeth tell stories of diverse, plant-rich diets. These microscopic time capsules reveal consumption patterns invisible to traditional archaeology, showing that plant foods formed the dietary foundation for most Paleolithic peoples. Neanderthals at El Cedrón Cave consumed pine nuts, moss, mushrooms, and medicinal plants like yarrow and chamomile, non-nutritional species with therapeutic properties that suggest sophisticated pharmacological knowledge. The Ibero-Maurusian populations of North Africa maintained predominantly plant-based diets, featuring nuts, legumes, and possibly cultivated starches. Evidence from Israeli sites dating to 800,000 years ago shows consumption of 55 different food plants plus fish, demonstrating remarkable dietary diversity that challenges every stereotype about meat-eating cavemen. Hunting techniques evolved far beyond the popular image of club-wielding primitives. Persistence hunting, the endurance pursuit of prey over 7 to 9 hours, required extraordinary physical conditioning and strategic thinking. The development of spear throwers around 30,000 years ago reduced gender differences in hunting effectiveness, multiplying throwing force by 60% and enabling more flexible task allocation based on individual capabilities rather than rigid role assignments. Gender roles showed remarkable flexibility throughout the Paleolithic. Recent archaeological reassessment found little evidence for rigid gender divisions, with both men and women participating in hunting, gathering, and tool production based on immediate needs and individual skills. Burial sites show women interred with hunting tools and men with plant processing equipment, suggesting task fluidity that maximized group efficiency while maintaining the egalitarian structures that characterized Paleolithic societies. The tools themselves represent one of humanity's greatest intellectual achievements. Beginning with simple Oldowan choppers 2.6 million years ago, human toolmaking progressed through increasingly sophisticated stages. The Acheulean hand axe tradition demanded understanding of symmetry, form, and function. By 300,000 years ago, Levallois's technique enabled toolmakers to predetermine flake shapes through careful core preparation, a manufacturing approach that prefigured modern mass production methods by allowing creation of standardized tool blanks. The Upper Paleolithic Revolution around 50,000 years ago brought blade technology that increased cutting-edge efficiency 100-fold over earlier methods. Composite tools, combining multiple materials, required sophisticated understanding of material properties, adhesive chemistry using birch tar and ochre mixtures, and mechanical engineering principles. The 300,000-year-old wooden spears from Schoningen represent masterpieces of early engineering, crafted from carefully selected spruce and pine with advanced techniques for debarking, shaping, and fire hardening that created weapons balanced like modern javelins. These sophisticated technologies were created and used in equally sophisticated living spaces. While popular imagination places Paleolithic peoples exclusively in caves, archaeological evidence reveals constructed shelters that required community cooperation and engineering knowledge. The 400,000-year-old oval huts at Terramata in France measured 26 to 49 feet long, built with wooden post construction and central hearths featuring stone windbreaks precisely oriented to protect inhabitants from prevailing winds. The mammoth bone houses at Mezhirich, Ukraine, represent some of prehistory's most impressive architecture. 4 structures built 15,000 years ago required 149 individual mammoth bones, a construction project demanding sophisticated engineering to move bones weighing hundreds of pounds. These structures were arranged strategically on a promontory overlooking a river confluence, with internal organization revealing sophisticated understanding of domestic architecture. Each dwelling contained 20 to 25 square meters of living space, with designated areas for sleeping, cooking, and craftwork. Within these carefully constructed homes, Paleolithic societies operated as fiercely egalitarian communities that actively resisted dominance hierarchies through cultural mechanisms of teasing, ridicule, and threats of ostracism for selfish behavior. Band sizes typically ranged from 20 to 50 individuals, organized around kinship ties and flexible leadership structures that emphasized consensus over authority. Decision-making involved lengthy discussions where every adult voice carried weight, creating social systems that anthropologists recognize as truly democratic. Food sharing represented the cornerstone of social organization. Demand sharing required individuals with coveted resources, especially meat, to share with all group members. Butchering and distribution were typically performed by individuals other than the hunter, ensuring equal allocation that prevented accumulation of individual wealth. This system created powerful social bonds and mutual insurance against the uncertainties of foraging life, where any one successful hunt benefited everyone. Trade and exchange networks connected groups across vast distances. Movement of lithic materials over 100+ kilometers was common in the Upper Paleolithic, with some shells and amber traveling over 800 kilometers from their sources. These networks facilitated not just material trade, but technology transfer, genetic exchange through intermarriage, and cultural transmission that enriched all participating groups. Regular gatherings at seasonal aggregation sites allowed bands to maintain social connections across territories spanning thousands of square kilometers. The artistic achievements of Paleolithic peoples represent sophisticated cultural expression that rivals any human artistic tradition. The paintings at Lascaux feature over 600 figures, created using advanced perspective techniques and three-dimensional effects that exploit natural rock contours. Artists ground mineral pigments with precision, created scaffolding to reach high walls, and used spray painting techniques through hollow bones. At Chauvet Cave, 30,000-plus-year-old animal portrayals demonstrate extraordinary observational skills and artistic vision, with techniques like scraped shading and perspective that wouldn't reappear in art until the Renaissance. Musical instruments provide evidence of complex cultural life. The 42,000-year-old bone flutes from Whole Fells, carved from griffin vulture radius bones with 5 finger holes, represent sophisticated acoustic engineering. These weren't simple noisemakers, but precision instruments capable of complex melodies that accompanied social gatherings and ceremonies. The careful spacing of finger holes shows understanding of musical intervals, while wear patterns suggest regular use over extended periods. Despite popular images of violent prehistoric life, archaeological evidence reveals Paleolithic societies as predominantly cooperative, with violence being relatively rare and conflict typically resolved through mobility and avoidance rather than warfare. Analysis of skeletal remains suggests only 2.3 to 3.85% of Paleolithic individuals show evidence of violent trauma, rates comparable to or lower than many modern societies. Most injuries appear accidental rather than inflicted, suggesting that cooperation, not conflict, defined human relationships.
Mobility served as the primary strategy for avoiding resource competition. Groups required 700 to 500 square miles per band for sustainable foraging, with movement patterns following seasonal availability cycles. This lifestyle required intimate knowledge of vast territories, including detailed understanding of water sources, seasonal plant distributions, animal migration patterns, and safe travel routes. Mental maps passed down through oral tradition contained information about resources, dangers, and landmarks across thousands of square kilometers. Far from being passive foragers, Paleolithic peoples were active landscape managers who used fire and other tools to modify ecosystems sustainably over thousands of years. Fire stick farming created vegetation mosaics that increased game availability, promoted desired plant species, and reduced wildfire risks. This practice demonstrates sophisticated understanding of ecological relationships and long-term resource management that maintained environmental balance for millennia. New archaeological techniques continue to overturn stereotypes about primitive early humans. The Blombos Cave Workshop in South Africa contained complete toolkits for ochre processing and the world's oldest abstract drawing dating to 73,000 years ago. Recent redating of the Schoningen spears revealed these sophisticated weapons were crafted by Neanderthals, challenging assumptions about cognitive differences between human species. The Paleolithic era gave humanity its fundamental toolkit, not just stone blades and wooden spears, but the social technologies of cooperation, sustainable resource management, and cultural transmission that enabled our species to thrive across every environment on Earth. These weren't brutish cavemen struggling for survival, but our sophisticated ancestors who developed the technologies, social systems, and cultural practices that made civilization possible. Their achievement, maintaining thriving communities within ecological limits for hundreds of thousands of years while creating art, music, and symbolic expression that still moves us today, represents one of humanity's greatest accomplishments. Understanding their sophisticated achievements doesn't just correct historical stereotypes, it provides inspiration and practical wisdom for creating more sustainable, equitable, and culturally rich societies in our modern world.